Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the sprawling mysteries of Earth's most isolated, heavily restricted, and honestly, least understood landmass. We're talking about Antarctica. It's a place of endless snow, biting winds, and absolute deafening silence. But as we're about to see, this frozen frontier is anything but empty. So you really have to wonder, what is actually lurking beneath the ice of a continent that used to just be a blank white space on ancient maps? I mean, this place is twice the size of Australia, it's larger than all of Europe combined, and because of that massive scale, Antarctica has sparked centuries of legends, wild theories, and these monumental scientific endeavors. What exactly are we uncovering now that modern technology is finally peeling back that ice?
Well, to understand the mystery, get this. This single continent holds a staggering 90% of the entire world's ice. Think about that for a second. In some places, that ice sheet is literally more than a mile thick. That makes any kind of large-scale exploration nearly impossible. Basically, nature has built this incredibly effective continent-sized vault, keeping whatever lies beneath completely hidden from human eyes for millions of years.
All right, let's kick things off with part one, mysteries on the surface.
Take this massive 4,150-foot peak over in the Ellsworth Mountains. It's like a giant puzzle. Now, geologists explain this as a nunatak, which is basically just a mountain peak poking through the ice that's been carved into these sharp, near-perfect geometric triangles by millions of years of natural freeze-thaw weathering. But on the flip side, independent theorists point to its incredibly symmetrical four faces, comparing it directly to the Great Pyramids of Giza. They argue it could actually be a buried human-made structure from a totally forgotten era.
And the mystery really only deepens when you start looking at modern satellite imagery. We're finding these bizarre, highly debated features that, to some, just look way too symmetrical to be natural. We're talking massive rectangular doorways seemingly carved into rock faces, staircase-like lines leading into pitch-black caves, and perfectly preserved mummified seals found completely inexplicably, miles and miles away from the ocean. Now, scientists attribute these things to shifting ice, wind erosion, and disoriented animals. But for many people, these anomalies are silent clues left behind by a very mysterious past.
Okay, moving right along to part two, life beneath the ice.
Now, this is absolutely wild. The fossil record shows us that Antarctica wasn't always this frozen wasteland. Deep under the ice, scientists have actually found fossilized roots and leaves from temperate rainforests. 100 million years ago, this place had rivers, trees, and temperatures as warm as 21 degrees Celsius. It took millions of years of gradual climate shifts, and possibly even movements in the Earth's axis, to lock this entire continent inside its current icy tomb. And I find this next fact absolutely fascinating. Scientists have identified over 400 subglacial lakes hidden deep, deep beneath the surface. These have been completely cut off from the sun and our atmosphere for millions of years. Take Lake Vostok, for example, which is buried nearly 4,000 meters down. These aren't just solid blocks of ice, they are actual liquid lakes kept warm by the Earth's internal heat. They're essentially pristine time capsules of prehistoric biology. And that brings us to extremophiles. These tough little guys perfectly explain how microscopic life thrives in completely isolated, hostile environments. A great example is the famous blood falls. Plunging out of the Taylor Glacier, this 5-story waterfall literally looks like blood, but is actually oxidized iron. Inside that water, scientists found microorganisms surviving entirely on iron and sulfur in total pitch-black darkness. It proves for sure that life can adapt and flourish in conditions we once thought were entirely dead.
Let's shift gears a bit here and get into part three, secret expeditions and myths. Just listen to this chilling quote from a British whaling ship that got trapped in the pack ice. It perfectly captures the eerie, unforgiving nature of Antarctic waters. The ghost ship Jenny was discovered decades later by another crew, and supposedly, the men were found frozen completely solid, still at their stations. And it's a very real, very grim reminder of the fatal stakes involved in exploring this part of the world. But that extreme isolation paved the way for some intense geopolitical interest. It started with a 1938 Nazi expedition hunting for territory and whale oil, mapping over 600,000 square kilometers and claiming a region they called New Swabia. Then, right after World War II, the U.S. countered with Operation High Jump, sending over 4,700 men and 13 ships. The sheer timing and scale of these missions totally laid the groundwork for decades of intense speculation. And there's a stark contrast here. Officially, Operation High Jump was a scientific mission meant to test military equipment and map the ice. But there are incredibly persistent rumors that Admiral Byrd's forces were actually hunting for secret underground installations. Theorists argue that the unprecedented military scale, a few fatal plane crashes, and the fact that the mission ended weeks earlier than planned all suggest they might have encountered something highly advanced and perhaps deeply dangerous.
To really understand the wildest rumors surrounding Operation High Jump, we have to neutrally look at the concept of Agartha. This is a legendary inner-Earth civilization that Admiral Byrd supposedly encountered, at least according to a highly debated, unverified secret diary. The myth claims he flew into a warm green valley within the ice and met advanced beings who warned him about humanity's use of nuclear weapons. Now, historians dismiss the diary as a complete fabrication, but the legend of a hidden subterranean realm in Antarctica, that refuses to die.
Which brings us to a major diplomatic turning point. Part 4, the Antarctic Treaty.
So picture this. It's 1959, the height of the Cold War, and 12 nations suddenly signed a treaty turning this massive continent into a giant, strictly controlled science lab for peaceful purposes only. To this very day, military maneuvers and nuclear tests are totally banned, and access is heavily regulated. You can't just charter a plane and freely explore the deep interior of Antarctica. Your movements are strictly monitored.
But as we look at those strict limitations on public access today, we really have to ask, was this sudden global cooperation purely for environmental science, or does it fuel the theories that something is being deliberately kept from us? Skeptics are quick to point out that fierce enemies like the US and the Soviet Union agreeing so quickly to ban the military from a massive landmass is highly suspicious. Is it ecological preservation or an international quarantine?
All right, let's step away from the historical myths for a moment and look at the present. Part 5, the real future threat. Because it's not just the ice we need to worry about anymore. Tiny biological invaders are actually hitching rides on ships and threatening to overwhelm an ecosystem that has evolved in total isolation for millions of years. Back in 2014, alien invertebrates called springtails overran a facility at Australia's Davis Station, forcing an immediate, total sterilization. As human access increases, so does the very real risk of completely destabilizing Antarctica's delicate biological balance. And then there's this, frankly, alarming statistic. Parts of the Antarctic Peninsula have warmed by nearly 3 degrees Celsius in just the last 50 years. That is faster than almost anywhere else on Earth. The ice is retreating, the sea ice is melting earlier every single year, and massive ice shelves are beginning to fracture and collapse. Antarctica is basically acting as a giant thermometer for our planet, and the mercury is spiking hard.
The so what here is absolutely massive. Antarctica holds 90% of the world's fresh water. If we lose the West Antarctic ice sheet, the resulting 3-meter sea level rise would completely submerge coastal communities everywhere. We are talking about fundamentally redrawing the map of human civilization. It's a game changer.
We're basically staring down an ultimate crossroads. As the ice recedes, we might actually see the return of grasslands and human settlements down there. In a couple of hundred years, the coasts of Antarctica might even support potato and barley farming. But the terrible trade-off for a quote-unquote green Antarctica is a globally flooded Earth.
So to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one big thought. As Earth's final frontier slowly melts, what exactly will we be forced to confront when the ice is finally gone? Whether it reveals long-lost fossilized rainforests, hidden underground ecosystems, or the catastrophic reality of a warming planet, one thing is for sure, Antarctica is no longer a silent continent. It is speaking to us, and we absolutely must pay attention.